Chapter 4, A Truly Beautiful Mind. Before you read, who do you think of when you hear of word genius? Who is a genius? What qualities do you think a genius has? We shall now read about a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago. In the summer of 1905, the 26-year-old published a quick succession for four ground-breaking papers. In the summer of 1905, the 26-year-old published in quick succession four groundbreaking papers. So he published four groundbreaking papers about light, the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. So what were the four papers? Four papers were about light, about the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. So these were the things published by one person. The name will appear later. Okay, but his age is given 26-year-old and the year is 1905. His work took up only a few pages in scientific journals, but changed forever our understanding of space, time, and the entire cosmos. The papers were less, so only few pages he wrote, but the understanding he gave the world is like it is like very vast. It covers a very vast area. So that has changed forever our understanding of space, time, and the entire cosmos, and transformed the name Einstein into a synonym for genius. So now you know we are talking about Albert Einstein. 50 years after his death, Albert Einstein's genius still reigns. So now the chapter begins. Albert Einstein was born on 14 March 1879 in the German city of Ulm, without any indication that he was destined for greatness. So he was like normally born as other child. So there was no indication about his greatness at the time of birth. Who knows what the baby will grow up to. So he was born on 14 March 1879. This is given. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. To her, his head seemed too much large. So Albert Einstein's mother thought that his head is too much large. At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. So at the age of 2.5, he was not talking also. When he finally did learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. And when he started speaking, he uttered almost everything like twice. Einstein did not know what to do with other children, and his playmates called him Brother Boring. So his playmates called him Boring, Brother Boring. So the youngster played by himself. So he used to play by himself much of the time. He especially loved mechanical toys. Looking at his newborn sister Maja, he is said to have said, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" So when his newborn sister he saw, so he will play with her and he will say that where is her wheels, because he used to play with toys and toys moves on wheels. A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession would not matter because he will never make a success at anything. So it can be said what his headmaster told about him or felt about him. So his headmaster told once his father that whatever profession he will choose, he will not make success because he is never make a success at anything. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. He later became a gifted amateur violinist. So he became a amateur violinist when he grew up, maintaining this skill throughout his life. But but Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. He was not a bad student. He went to high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. Einstein hated the school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled there that he left the school for good. Stifled means unable to breathe or suffocated. So he felt himself suffocated in the school. So he left the school at the age of 15. So this was about Munich, where he studied. Okay, initially. So he studied in school in Munich, and he left at the age of 15. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German speaking Switzerland, in a city which was more liberal than Munich. So he decided to continue the education in Switzerland in a school which is more liberal than that it was in Munich when compared to Munich school. Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and interested in physics, and after finishing school he decided to study a university in Zurich. So after finishing of the school he decided to study in university in Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with the walrus mustache. So he was interested in other subjects also apart from science. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Mileva Marek, whom he found to be a clever creature. The young Serb had come to Switzerland because the university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could get degrees. Einstein saw in her an ally against the Philistines. Philistines means a word used disapprovingly to talk about people who do not like art, literature, or music. Those people in his family and at the university with whom he was constantly at odds. The couple fell in love. Letters survive in which they put their affection into words. Mixing science with tenderness, wrote Einstein, how happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion. So even when they exchange the letters, they will discuss about science or use the science words in their letters. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. So he got a private job of private lesson in a patent office in Bern in 1902. While he was supposed to be accessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. He is said to have jokingly called his desk. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. One of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute. So one of the special paper that is published was about the theory of relativity, in which he said time and distance are not absolute. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time if they come together again after a journey if one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. So this is interesting. He gives the special theory of relativity. From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relationship between mass and energy. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling, means starting to fail. Albert had wanted to marry Mileva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. She thought Mileva, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. She was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence. She is a book like you, his mother said. Einstein put the wedding off. The pair finally married in January 1903 and had 2 sons. But a few years later, the marriage faltered. Mileva, meanwhile, was losing her intellectual ambition and becoming an unhappy housewife. After years of constant fighting, the couple finally divorced in 1919. Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise to world fame. In 1915, he had published his general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. An eclipse of the sun in 1919 brought proof that it was accurate. So he said about the theory of relativity, and which also provided a new interpretation of the gravity, and it was proved by the eclipse that happened in 1919. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which the light from fixed star would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. The newspaper proclaimed his work as a scientific revolution. Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. He was showered with honors and invitations from all over the world and lauded by the press. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emigrated to the United States. 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physicists in an uproar. Many of them had fled from fascism, just as Einstein had, and now they were afraid the Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb. At the urging of a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to the American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on 2nd August 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a port might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. So he also warned about the damages that an atomic bomb can cause. His words did not fail to have an effect. The Americans developed the atomic bomb in a secret project of their own and dropped it on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1949. Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction. This time he wrote a public missive to the United Nations. In it, he proposed the formation of the world government, unlike the letter of Roosevelt. This one made no impact. But over the next decade, Einstein got ever more involved in politics, agitating for an end to the arms buildup and using his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. Okay, so later he started working for the peace and democracy. When Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, he was celebrated as a visionary and world citizen as much as a scientific genius. So he is remembered as a world genius and also as a world citizen and a visionary. So this is about Albert Einstein.